Good evening, San Diego. I'm Chief Meteorologist Carlene Chavis, and thank you for tuning in for your CBS 8 Plus weather update. Let's talk about the heat because it is just getting started. Now, we did have some hot highs for today, 97 degrees. That was Valley Center. Also had 90s today for Escondido as well as for Alpine. You had 94 degrees today for Ramona, 90 degrees for Julian, 109 for Borrego Springs, and 70s and 80s along the North County coastline as we had 80 degrees for Encinitas. You also had 79 degrees. That was for downtown. But temperatures are going to get even hotter by tomorrow and carry into Thursday. So that is prompting weather impact alert days. You have hot highs back in the forecast, and now the entire county is going to be under a heat alert for Wednesday as well as Thursday. Also, humid days are ahead of us. Now, for tomorrow, a little bit of that moisture gets cut off, and that only is just basically going to decrease our chances, which were already low when it does come to any wet weather popping up over the mountains like we saw earlier today. But as we go into Thursday, there's more of a surge with that moisture, and that's going to be Thursday all the way into the start of next week, offering up the chance, the range, about 10 to 20% chance of seeing any isolated showers or even thunderstorms over the mountains and the desert into next week. But let's talk about the heat first. Heat alerts go into effect starting at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, lasting all the way through 8 p.m. on Thursday, and that now will include the entire county. So the desert has now been added to the extreme heat warning, and that's with highs upwards of 115. You also have the mountains into the 90s below 6,000 feet, mid 90s to 104 for the inland valleys, and also the beach. The beach not necessarily under an extreme heat warning, but still hot enough for a heat advisory. You have the beaches and near the coast into the 80s as well as near 90s, and that will be by tomorrow, also looking at that pattern into Thursday as well. So be mindful of the fact that during this key time frame, about 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., that's when we start to get the heating of the day really going. We start to feel those warmer temperatures. Also factored in the humidity, that's going to be out there as well. And then that's when you have the most intense sun rays. So this is a key time frame that we tell you not to be outside doing those strenuous outdoor activities like hiking, or I know a lot of you like to play pickleball, but just be mindful that that heat will definitely be a deterrent, wanting to keep you safe over the next couple of days because it's going to be steamy out there. Also, the high UV index. It's been fluctuating between very high to extreme. So make sure if you're going to be outside for an extended period of time, you're also using sunscreen. You're taking as many breaks as you can, especially in the shade, and staying nice and hydrated, utilizing cool zones because of this heat if you don't have AC. But staying nice and hydrated is very crucial, especially drinking plenty of water, because if you're outside and maybe you're out during those midday hours and you start to feel thirsty, that's when, well, it's not the best time because you should have already hydrated ahead of time. But just keep in mind that the heat is going to be around into the territory of basically being heat alerts, and that will be for the next couple of days. By the weekend, temperatures will back off, but the humidity will still be there. Now let's talk about that humidity, because that comes into play with our warmer than usual overnight lows as well, making things feel uncomfortable. And so our overnight lows are going to be about 5 to 10 degrees warmer than usual. Now that brings in the low 70s. You have that for Encinitas, as well as for Carlsbad and for El Cajon, and for Alpine, seeing those 70s across the mountains, 84 degrees for Borrego Springs, 69 degrees expected for downtown and Chula Vista. So as I mentioned, these temperatures about 5 to 10 degrees warmer than usual for this time of the year. So not a whole lot of relief when you're backing away from these hot highs we're going to be experiencing. So that humidity is also going to be at play there, because these are the temperatures that we get right before our sunrise, which is at 5:51 for tomorrow morning. So that means it's going to be pretty warm for most of the night. When we look at our highs for tomorrow, above seasonal by about 5 to 15 degrees, bringing those 90s again, and more of those 90s for tomorrow. You have that for Fallbrook at 91 degrees, 90 degrees for La Mesa, 95 degrees for El Cajon. You also have the upper 90s. That's going to be for Ramona as well as for Julian. 112 degrees for Borrego Springs tomorrow, 85 degrees for Chula Vista, 81 degrees expected for downtown. So this is a territory of being warmer than usual, but we're not looking at anything as far as records are concerned for our daytime highs, but we could actually hit some of those records, either break or tie them when it comes to the overnight lows for just how warm it's going to be into those overnight hours. When we look out from Mount Laguna, this was earlier today. We had more of a vertical lift with our cloud cover. Now we're just seeing a few of those fair weather clouds that are out there, a few of those cumulus clouds, but we did have a little bit more of that vertical lift, and so that gave way, especially with the heating of the day. Clouds building up and also some showers. We had isolated showers, even a cell that popped up near Campo, drifted towards Pine Valley. That was earlier this afternoon, but that activity is dying down. And as you just saw with that live shot that was out there for Mount Laguna, things are a lot quieter. So we did have a lot more of those cumulus clouds building up. We're going to see that pattern on repeat. Not so much with our chances for wet weather by tomorrow, but more of an emphasis about 10 to 20% chance by Thursday, and that carries all the way into the start of next week. Right along the coast, we have another alert to talk about because it has been extended. That beach hazard statement still going until tomorrow night at midnight. Elevated surf still coupled with that high tide and that extra pull from the high tides, that is creating the minor tidal overflow. So still with the surf about 3 to 5 feet, strong rip currents being present, and you're not advised to be in the water if you're not a skilled swimmer. And then you also have taken into consideration that extra pull when it comes to our evening high tides. That's all because of the new moon phase that's taking place tonight, and that's leading to minor tidal overflow into parking lots, adjacent streets, and onto boardwalks. We've had reports of some of that spillage happening on boardwalks right there, minor tidal overflow in Mission Beach. So for tonight, also for Wednesday night, you're still looking at those tides between about 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. and that extra pull creating those high tides up to about 7 feet. So just keep that in mind over the next couple of evenings. As mentioned, that is now going to keep going all the way until midnight tomorrow night for that beach hazard statement. You have this ridge of high pressure. We're not the only ones feeling heat from it. Across the Great Plains all the way towards the northeast, including the Midwest, they're going to be dealing with hot highs as well. Because of the heat and humidity across the northeast, feeling like 107, also talking about triple-digit heat for the Great Plains as well as for the Midwest. So that area of high pressure, it's going to expand. It's a big ridge. You have a couple of areas of high pressure that are under this ridge, is keeping it more amplified. And that's why we're talking about the heat in our forecast for tomorrow. Reaching the peak of that heat for our Wednesday starts to back off a little bit more, and that will be by Friday. So temperatures will actually go back to what's seasonal for this time of the year, but we're still going to have some of that humidity out there. So you'll see some high clouds streaming through, especially on Saturday. You have weather impact alert days all the way through Thursday. West of the mountains, you have 90s for the inland valleys, holding on to that range all the way through Thursday. You're back into the 80s, getting back to seasonal by Friday, and that sticks around all the way into the weekend and start of next week. You have low 80s for the coast by tomorrow. Could still see some of those low 80s as well as some upper 70s, and then getting back into those widespread 70s, and that will take us by the weekend all the way into next week for the coast. You have 90s over the next couple of afternoons for the mountains, and then you have those 80s back in the forecast. You're still looking at some of those clouds out there passing through and potentially looking at a slight chance, so about 10 to 20% chance that we could see an isolated shower or thunderstorm with the heating of the day before we get to our sunset, which is going to be around 7:58. Once we lose that energy and that warmth, that's when things start to get a little bit quieter. You have 112 for the desert for tomorrow, 107 by Thursday, and temperatures that get down to 103 by Friday. It's still going to be on the warm side, but also talking about being closer to seasonal for this time of the year for the desert. I hope you have a great night, and thanks for tuning in.